Praise God. What a day it is today. What a joy it is to be with you this morning. I'm Pastor Wendell Burden of Family Life Ministries International. So it's a joy to be with you. And this has been such a trying week and so many things have taken place. But through it all, I just want to say that I've learned to trust in Jesus and I've learned to trust in God. It doesn't matter so what we find ourselves going through it. God is still on the throne and we still trust him in everything that we do. So I'm excited because this next coming week coming up, we're going to try to open up our services back into the church again. So in fact, on the 5th day of July, we're planning on opening up the church to have service again. With this coronavirus, of course, we've been out for quite a while, so we don't take it lightly because we know that this coronavirus is a very serious time that we're going through. In fact, there's going to be a lifestyle change that's going to take place because this is going to be here for a while. And so what we're saying is that we are going to continue on and try to get the church open. We've already had the people to come in and to sanitize the church and to take care of different things that needs to be done. Even for our preparation, some of the things we're doing now, we have already gone in and installed the sanitation areas there, that when you come in you will have to sanitize your hands, and we will continue saying you have to have your mask. We're taking this serious. This is not a joke. And so masks will absolutely have to be worn. You will not be able to enter the service without having a mask on. Of course, we will maintain our 6 feet distance apart from everyone. We will do all of those things, and we have a medical doctor, Dr. ATN, the MD, will be there, and his wife, who is also a nurse, will be there. And we will be checking people when they come in. We want to make sure that we are not going to have the possibility of spreading this coronavirus to anyone. When you get inside the church also, we've already got a plan to how people are going to be setting separation from each other, and even as I give the word, we're going to be separated away from everyone else. We're going to be doing some changes. There won't be people coming forth to have hands laid on them. And people say, well, don't you have faith? Absolutely, I have faith, but I know that even having faith, I know that we have to be very careful in what we're doing. So we don't want to spread this virus out because it is serious. It is no joke. In fact, as I listen to the news, I see how there's a big spike in the virus going around, particularly in places like Florida and Texas and some of the southern states that's coming up. Pennsylvania, at this point, we're still holding steady, but I'm watching it very closely because if I see where there's a big spike in Pennsylvania and it seems to be going around even more strongly than what it is now, I'll have to cancel services again. But as of this point, it seems like we're going to be able to have services on the 5th, which will be on that Sunday morning. So that's going to be right after the 4th of July, our celebration time. The Declaration of Independence time, but we're going to try to get open during that time. But I do have a message this morning that I want to give to you. This is a problem that's been going on for quite a while, and there's been a lot of this conversations in reference to the issues of happening with racial disqualities in the United States throughout. In fact, it seems to be a worldwide thing that's taking place right now. With all the murders of black men by the police. Of course, this is becoming to be a pretty big thing. We're talking about Black Lives Matter, and people sometimes wonder just exactly what are we talking about? Why does Black Lives matter? Today I want to cover some of those things that I've experienced and why I know that that comment of Black Lives Matter is so very important. As I look back even in the scriptures, I look at things that has taken place with lifestyles of people. And we find that we have lifestyles that we have been raised with that has caused us to believe things and to stand by things. Even if our mouths don't say it, our hearts really do reflect it. And so these are some of the things that I want to address this morning. And if I would go back, all the way back to time in Moses' day when he went to talk to Pharaoh, he was telling Pharaoh, you got to let my people go. And God is saying, let the people go. You don't need to have those slaves. Pharaoh, because of the circumstances he found himself in and all the things that was happening, the plagues that was being put on him, that God was putting on him through Moses, Pharaoh had no desire to stop and let his slaves go. But it got so bad that Pharaoh finally says, because of the circumstances, I'll let them go. Just let them go. Stop everything you're doing to me. Even though he let them go, his lifestyle never changed. He still had a desire. His heart didn't change. He still wanted his slaves back. That's why he went off after them. Immediately after he had let them go, he went back after them because his heart had not changed. Some say he went back to get them because if he wanted his riches, they walked away with a lot of the riches of the country. But I say that, hey, he wanted his slaves back because the work being done in that country was all being done by slaves. Even the Israelites, it's amazing. Even after they got their freedom and they were away and they were headed for the promised land, God had given them so much. But even though they were at freedom, their lifestyle of what they had when they were slaves never changed. Their heart was still back where they were at. So when difficulty came and they had a hardship, something didn't go the right way, they didn't have the food they wanted to eat, even though God was providing, the first thing they said was, well, let's go back to Pharaoh. At least we had enough food to eat there. Where were they at? They were back into the same situation where they were saying that this lifestyle that we had, even though we may have changed, our heart was still back there. What we find today, in the situation we're finding ourselves in today, is that there's many people that had slaves back in the day. And when they had black slaves, they treated these black slaves with no respect whatsoever. They had no problem with beating them. They had no problem with hanging them. They had no problem treating them like it didn't matter because black lives did not matter. As far as they were concerned, they could treat them any way they wanted to treat them. They could hang them from a tree and never have a problem. Never have to go to court for it. Why? Because black lives did not matter. There were so many things that took place back during that time. You were a slave. You were owned. You had no life. If they decided to separate your family, send the wives off one way and the husbands off another way, the master would take the wives, it didn't matter, take the children and sell them. That's why they would have picnics and they would call it, come together, join together so we could pick a nigger. Black lives didn't matter. And so that's why we found ourselves in predicaments. And that's a lifestyle that they led during that particular time. The white man lived that life where black people meant nothing. And so we say that's back in the slavery day. Well, when Lincoln came along and Lincoln says, but the slavery was legally wrong, we got to stop the slavery. Just because they changed the law, it didn't change their hearts. People still had the concept in their minds, in their hearts, that they're still slaves. Black people are still slaves. So we had that issue. They changed the law, but they didn't change the hearts. That's why the Jim Crow laws came into play, because black lives didn't matter. And then when I look at the situation where if you went to a water fountain, it would say for coloreds only or for whites only. Black lives didn't matter. Even at my age, I've experienced that. Go to a restaurant, get up to the counter and get a bite to eat. They would come to you and say, no, you can't be here. Black people can't eat at this counter. You have to go around the back because black lives didn't matter. I went to a theater. Thought we'd have a nice time seeing a movie. Got a tap on the shoulder. You can't sit here. Why can't I sit here? Because black people can't sit in this part of the theater. You have to go around the back and go upstairs. That's where you sit at. Because black lives don't matter. I remember the time when I was traveling, stopped to get a bite to eat. 2 pickup trucks. In fact, before I even did that, we stopped to get a bite to eat. I did. At a Dairy Queen restaurant. Why not? Stop and get a bite to eat. The man looked at me when I walked up. Boy, what are you doing here? I said, I'd like to get a soda so I can travel on down the highway. He said, there's no niggers in this county. You better get out of here. And so I jumped in my car, and when I did, 2 pickup trucks pulled up behind me with the Confederate flags hanging from the sides. And they chased me down the highway. If I had not have outrun them, I wouldn't be talking to you today. And I say that because to them, black lives didn't matter. Didn't matter whatsoever. So I've traveled around in a lot of places and I've seen things happen. And because black lives didn't matter. So we say the laws have changed. Those things no longer are taking effect. They're no longer there. And so we say the laws have changed. And I think that's great that the laws have changed. But I'm telling you this, even though the laws have changed, the hearts in many people have not. That's why sometimes you hear comments being made about little black girls. Isn't she beautiful for a little black girl? For a black man, isn't he handsome? That's bigotry. That's looking at people because they don't matter. I remember for myself, had some friends, had the discussion about race. Comments was, you're different. I'm not different. Had a great time together. We spent time together. They had a wedding and they wanted to invite my wife and I and my son to the wedding. The comment was, I have to let my family know that you're black and you'll be coming to the wedding. Prepare the family. Lifestyles. This is a lifestyle they were raised under. This is a lifestyle that they lived under. And so they had to notify the family. And this is after we had spent time together. But I thought we had a relationship. So one day we were at their home, working in the garage. I was in the garage working because, as you know, I'm a mechanic. I love working in garages when it comes to cars. And I was doing some work there. And while we were there, his brothers came up. I won't mention names. His brothers came up and they were outside the garage. And they didn't know I was within hearing distance. And I listened to their conversation. How did you get that nigga to come up here and work for you? How did you? And the friend that I thought was a friend was commenting back, and they had the conversation about black people and how they laughed about us and they joked about us and eeny meeny miny mo kept a nigga about it, and they were just laughing. And I says, I can't believe this is a guy that I thought we had a relationship. But I looked at that and I realized then that his lifestyle hadn't changed. This was a lifestyle that he had previously, and even though he was trying to show respect for me, his heart had not changed. So I went and got my wife and I says, dear, it's time for us to go. And we left. Discussed the problem afterward, but even at that, the relationship was never the same. Because even in his heart, at this late time in our lives, black lives still didn't matter. And so we lived that life. That's the lifestyle we lived. And so, as I was trained even in my home as a child coming up, we had a lifestyle there also. Our lifestyle was this. If you want to get yourself a good job, look for a good job, make sure you do a good job for your boss, and if you do that, then you'll be a success. Success was just finding a job somewhere. And I can remember when I had friends that I knew that was looking for jobs. And when they got a job working in a hotel as a janitor, everybody was celebrating because they got a job. He got a good job. He's making money. He'll be able to pay for his house. That's what our form of success was. Because anything better than that, black lives didn't matter. So my father trained me that way. He told me, son, look for a good job. Make sure you do it. You got to be better than everybody else, anybody else there, because that's how you're going to be a success. And if you do a good job, then you might even get a promotion. That's how you live it. That's how you're going to do it. So I lived my life thinking that the best that I could do was that. But when I came along, my lifestyle changed. When my son came along, I started telling him, son, you can do anything. There is no limit to what you can do. You have the mind of Christ. And with the mind of Christ, you're brilliant and you can do all of these things. And so I taught him all of those things. There's nothing that you can't do. My son come through, going to college, getting his education. Still had difficulties. Even as he tried to get into school, into programs, they says, no, you can't get into that program. It took an effort just to get him into a program that he qualified for without a problem. But they didn't want him in the program. But because of our endurance and our fighting and our believing that it's true, we were able to get him into that class. Because I'm telling you, black lives do matter. But to them, black lives didn't matter. I remember just recently, because of all the circumstances that's going on, the dying of a lot of young black men right now. I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And the police putting their knees on their necks and killing men. Black lives don't matter. My son called me just the other day. His comment to me was this: Dad, I'm so glad you gave me the talk. And I guess many of you would wonder, what do you mean by the talk? Well, the talk is that, son, if you're ever pulled over by the police, make sure you put your windows down in your car. Make sure you keep your hands on the steering wheel. Don't make any sudden moves. If the police officer tells you to do something, do it. Don't argue with him. Whatever it be, if he treats you wrong, we'll fight about it afterwards. But the point is this: don't lose your life over a situation like that. So whatever they tell you to do, just do it, son. It's more important that you come home safe. So if they tell you to do something, even if you disagree, don't argue. Because black lives then don't matter. So we've lived a lifestyle of knowing that black lives don't matter. In fact, that's been our concept of life. Everything we did, every place we've gone, we've learned from what we've been treated is that black lives don't matter. If you look back at the history of the United States, those things that we've encountered throughout the years as a black people, as a black man, it has always been that black lives don't matter. But I want to tell you, black lives do matter. And that's what it's all about. And so now, as I look and see what's happening in the world today, young people have gone back and they've started educating themselves. And these comments that I made to you, how minute they are and how small areas that I've covered, those are small things compared to what was taking place. There were surgeries done to black people without anesthesia because they said black people don't hurt when they have surgery. Because you didn't matter. You didn't have to have it. But when I look back at all these things that has taken place, it's an amazing thing to where we're at today. Black lives too matter. And so when I think about the changes that are taking place, white people, black people, Spanish, Puerto Ricans, it doesn't matter, Jewish people. It's amazing now that when they do demonstrations, and they're demonstrating now because as they look back at the history, they're saying now black lives do matter. And that's why the slogan, Black Lives Matter, it isn't a political statement. This is a statement that black people have been held down for so many years and been told that you don't matter. Today we're saying that black lives do matter. It's important that you understand that. When I see the noose that was put around this, not put around his neck, but it was inside of his garage, this NASCAR driver, when I see that, my mind goes back. And I remember that black lives don't matter. When I see the Confederate flag now, when I see that Confederate flag, my mind goes back that tells me that black lives don't matter. And I think that way. And so when I think about people that stand up and say, all lives matter, they say that because they don't understand or they have not done the background check to see exactly what has happened, is why that statement is so important. When you look back and see how black people were treated, and those were the cues that would show you that black lives didn't matter, that's why they still say, it's our heritage. That's where I was born and raised. I was under that flag. I still appreciate it. But look at what it stands for. It stands for black lives don't matter. And so when I hear someone stand up and talk about how great it is, that tells me that their hearts haven't changed. There's still a people that lives under the lifestyle that they were taught from generations to generations. They still live under the same concept. They may speak one thing, but their hearts haven't changed. Their hearts are still where they say that black lives don't matter. But when you do your educational background and you understand what the black man has gone through in those days, and you understand what he's experienced, then you'll see why the comments that black lives do matter, because today we're saying that they do matter. We're working with a new generation of people. We tried to make changes in our generation. We may have got the laws changed, but we didn't change the hearts. Today I see those generations that are changing. Now I see where hearts are starting to change. And that's why we have people, white people, no matter who they may be, they're out there saying, look, things have changed. Black lives do matter. And that's why when I stand up and say black lives matter, when I see the signs, it's not that I look at a racial thing. It's not a black or white thing. This is a thing of saying that black people do matter. Open up the doors. Let us have the freedom. That's what this country was built on. Those are the things we want to be able to do. If you want to change, and you want to get your heart right to do what God's called you to do, we have to accept the idea that God is the creator of all of us. He made us the way he did. But we're still the children of God. If you have that issue today and you still feel that within your heart that you haven't changed, you invite Jesus to come into your heart and you say, Father, if there's anything within me that is not pleasing to you, that you know is not according to your word, I give you the authority right now to cleanse that out of me, that those thoughts in my mind, the injustices that I have that's within me, that's been inbred because of the lifestyle that I was raised under, I give you the authority to remove those things from me, that my life may be according to your will, according to what your word says. I am a part of the kingdom, and in a part of the kingdom, God has designed us all the same. So we have the right to understand this is what God's got for us. If you are living a life and you go back generations to generations, back during the time when black lives did not matter, and you've seen the laws change, but you haven't seen hearts change, now's the time to get our hearts right, to do what God's called us to do. I want to tell you, black lives do matter. Are we having difficulties today? Absolutely we are. Lifestyles of many people today have not changed. So we're looking at the United States. We're looking at the United States, all the things that are taking place. All of these lives that are the demonstrations that are taking place. They're demonstrating because they're saying, look back and see what you have done. Look back and see what you have done. These things have got to change. That's why when you see the slogan, Black Lives Matter, that's what they're talking about. For so long, black lives didn't matter. But they do matter. And that's what it's all about. You seek God's face. This country that we live in today, this country was founded upon equality. In fact, the 4th of July is coming up next weekend. And I think it's so important that we look at next weekend, because it's very, very important. This is a Declaration of Independence. I'm going to play a portion of something for you. I want you to listen to this. Listen to these words of what I'm going to play for you right now. And this is the United States of America. I want you to hear what it stands for and what it's supposed to stand for. Are we there?
In Congress,
we'll find
July
out.
4th, 1776.
Listen to this.
The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Yes. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such forms as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness.
See, all of us have a responsibility. Even our country has already says that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. And this is all we're asking for today. Because we've been treated so much as black lives don't matter. Even our country, even though the laws in that Declaration of Independence were spoken, now we have to get our hearts to go along with the same thing. That's why it's so important that you understand this isn't a racial thing that we're fighting for. We're fighting for equality. We want you to understand. We just want to be, we want the equality. We want to be able to do the things without being scrutinized for everything that we do. And that can only change whenever we get to the point that our hearts change. We can't continue on living under the circumstances that the lifestyle that we're living. We've got to change our lifestyle. And when we change our lifestyle, we can get our hearts to change. Father in heaven, I praise you for this day. I praise you, Father, that as you put your Holy Spirit down within all of us, that we recognize our responsibility. That is the love of Jesus is within us. That will give us the victory over the circumstance that we find ourselves in. Just as the Israelites found as they became closer to God, God led them everywhere they went. Let's put our trust in Jesus, that he will lead us where he wants us to go. And just to keep in mind, because of the circumstances and the background and the things that has transpired in the life of black people, that black lives too matter. We're human. And we want to be treated as such. God bless you. Have a blessed day. Let's celebrate the Declaration Day, the 4th of July, this coming Saturday. And we'll be able to enjoy ourselves in the freedom that God has designed for us. God bless you and have a very blessed day.